Hey everybody, welcome to Thingee's Tech Talk, where we talk about all things tech. I'm Jeff Bromley,
And I'm Rob Barra.
and today we're going to talk to you about Apple's latest announcement that happened on Tuesday, November 10th.
Yes, it is the big reveal of Apple's new M1 chip or system on a chip. As they've been sort of alluding to over the last several months, they have now officially announced what they have been referring to as Apple Silicon. Now, of course, Apple has been in the chip making business for quite some time, having made their own chips for the iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, etc. But now they are going into actual real things that people might call computers. So this is a pretty important thing. I mean, Jeff, take it away. Tell them everything they need to know about the feeds and speeds of the M1.
Well, the first thing to note is that this is a system on a chip. So if we compare that to the way your existing computers work, there is your CPU, your central processing unit. You have your RAM or random access memory. You have your hard drive. You have your graphics processor and anything else that's running on that motherboard, which takes up a decent sized footprint. So what Apple has done with this system on a chip is they've moved everything to a single chipset at 5 nanometer technology to get all this stuff to run super close to one another. So one of the things that means is your CPU is now literally sitting right next to your random access memory, which is going to make tasks of grabbing information out of RAM and processing that with your computing power that much faster. So they're basically bringing everything onto a chip. So now all you really need is this M1 processor, someplace to put it like a motherboard, and storage, and you've got a computer, which I don't know about Rob, but I remember talking with this in my graphics classes back at Seton Hall 2.5 decades ago, saying it's going to be super fast when they put the RAM actually on the CPU chipset. And Apple has done that today, and Apple is actually going to be rolling this out to professionals, which to me is something that is super cool. So I'm definitely excited.
Well, and I think it's interesting, Jeff, we were talking about this before we started talking here on Tech Talk, but for me, this seems like a natural progression of things. When you look at the leadership of Apple as it currently exists, Tim Cook was the guy around the supply chain when it comes to all of the different pieces, components to building iPhones and all those different things. One of the things with laptops is they have always historically relied on another manufacturer for their CPUs, whether it was Motorola back in the PowerPC days, or whether it was Intel for the last 15, 16 years. It's always been someone else providing those components. And Intel over this time hasn't really kept up with what Apple was achieving for their mobile devices in terms of power consumption, in terms of heat and heat management, thermal management. And I know one of the things that Apple has always been moving towards is a more streamlined production chain, owning more of their supply. And, to me, this is just the natural progression of things with everything going to Mac. Now, one of the things that I know will be interesting is just how some of the compatibility that has existed between the PC and the Mac world over the last decade and a half since they rolled out Intel Macs, how that's going to be affected. I know that I've used that certainly extensively over my career. Jeff, I know you have as well, and so have many others. Even at one time, the MacBook Pro was the number one machine to run Windows on for a while. But anyhow, the losing that, if that is indeed what's going to happen, it's possible that these chips are fast enough to do this via emulation. But it'll be interesting to see how that affects the professionals that are using it. I mean, most people, let's face it. I mean, my phone, my new iPhone 12, it's orders of magnitude better than the computer I used in college 20 years ago. And I mean, forget about it compared to the stuff that's in the Hubble Space Telescope or even running the space shuttle. So there's a lot of power in these things and a lot of battery life and all that stuff. That's really what they've been going towards. Because let's face it, most people just need Office apps. Most people just need web browsing, and a lot of people, students, some professionals, really just need the Office suite and some other stuff, and they can make it work. So it'll be interesting to see if companies are going to want to pay that premium, because those laptops are still going to be more expensive than your low end Lenovo's or those sorts of things. But for the pros that are looking for the ability to move easily, or for students who are looking for the ability to work remotely or and have all those features and capabilities, I think it's a pretty compelling value proposition, and we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, a couple points about, Apple products. I mean, we have Apple products that are being used by our office professionals that are 12 years old. Literally 2008 iMacs. And these things just keep working. I mean, granted, we put in a new solid state hard drive. We put in new RAM to upgrade it. Right. But it works. It's a viable business machine. You tell me what Windows machine that's 12 years old or soon to be 13 years old will still be working. No. So, I mean, with that, Macs traditionally have a lot more longevity. I mean, I brought a couple iMacs home. Both of my kids are on a 2011 iMac, and that makes their Chromebooks, which the school sent home, they look like they perform like junk. So, and
well, they are. I mean, let's face it. There's no. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. They in terms of the specs, in terms of the capabilities of it, an iPad is more powerful by several orders of magnitude than a Chromebook in terms of what it is capable of doing. And you notice it in certain applications. You notice it in in certain situations, but for the most part, that's just kind of how it is. I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see. They announced a new MacBook Pro. They announced a new Mac Mini. They are definitely going to, at some point, replace the Pro tier of things, and that's where things are going to get really interesting with both the iMac and and the Mac Pro. We'll see how that goes. Again, with emulation and those needs, but from a cost perspective. A $799 Mac Mini, when you look at it, I mean, again, if you look at what Apple has been doing in other markets, talking about security, talking about privacy, a system on a chip has certainly, from a security point of view, has a lot less avenues that you could, penetrate into, a lot less ways that you can't just walk in and hook a keylogger up to it without it noticing. There's not a bus that you could bypass or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's it's interesting from that point of view. I'm sure they'll have a lot of people that are buying into it for those reasons. And again with internet speeds and things like that, there's nothing necessarily stopping you from using it as a remote client. Use VNC or something of that nature to tunnel in and work in Windows, but on a Mac virtually. So.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about from Apple's perspective is they are about to go from being a lot profitable to a lot more profitable. So they're manufacturing.
If that was even possible. But again, it comes back to Tim Cook's a supply chain guy. This is how he has made his career. That's what he does. He optimizes things, and this is the last thing that they could optimize.
Yeah, well, and if you look at it, the cost of buying, let's say, an Intel Mac Mini, I think is like $999 or something like that. The cost of the M1 is actually $699. However, and this is something I want to stress to you, and we'll hit this in the recap later, the memory is on the chip. The chip is non-replaceable. Buy the largest memory you possibly can when you buy this. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay the Apple tax on that extra 8 gigabytes of memory, which 8 gigs of memory, I mean, if I was to buy it off the street is what, $50? Apple is charging $200 to go from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes. So that's where that even more profitable comes in.
You've already got antitrust sniffing around about that and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how far they go. And but again, we'll have to see. They've of course optimized their Pro suite of video and photo apps. They will, continue to be doing that, but for the most part, I'm going to be in a sort of wait and see mode with all of this. I kind of feel bad that we bought my daughter a MacBook Air earlier this year, because she would have been a perfect perfect user for this new thing with the battery life, lack of fans, heat, that sort of thing.
16 hours of battery life. That's pretty crazy. Granted, I'm sure if you use it, you'll probably get 10 or 12, but that's still a full day.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what I'm looking to see is how Apple is going to support the professional. I mean, they're going to have to create a wake of other companies like Adobe, which they have on board. I think they're releasing Lightroom. Lightroom is either coming with it or it's early in 2021. And then the rest of the Creative Suite is going to come behind that. They're going to create a wake for all of these developers. I mean, they showed in their video, they showed a number of different developers, like the guys that do C4D, DaVinci. Again, coming from a graphics background, I'm really excited to see what this can do. They're showing like real-time rendering with using these chipsets and these graphics processors that are just on board on this chip. So I'm like, all right, well, let's bring it on. Let's see where we can go to. I mean, maybe this completely disrupts the way that PCs, laptops, Macs, and personal computers are all going to be built. I'm really, really, really excited to see this. But
I don't know. I mean, it just is going to become the Mac. Is basically just going to be the iPad, and you've just got a screen and a keyboard, and that's it. And it folds up, and it's really small, and it's really light, and the battery life is incredible, and all that stuff. And that's what we're going to see, for the next 7 years.
But what happens? What happens if you want the monitor?
You can have the monitor, but that's the thing.
I can't afford the monitor.
But it's going to get cheaper.
It's
always going to get cheaper.
Their monitor stand. The monitor stand is $1,000, and I know that they released it.
If you want the Apple one, sure. I'm sure. Again, did Apple make the screen? No.
No, it's either LG or Samsung. One of the two.
Right.
Pick the major manufacturer.
And exactly, and that they're going to be able to get that. You're going to be able to get that screen from some other provider. So It's not surprising that that's going to happen. And again, okay, they announced their 6K monitor, and if you want the 6K monitor with the stand, it's $6,000. So 6K for 6K, absolutely not doing it. No.
Yeah, but, no, that's So in some of our conclusions, with that, I'm of the same opinion you are, Rob. It's like, let's wait and see. Am I going to be an early adopter? Right. Because the M2 chip is coming out in April or whenever they're going to come out with it. It's kind of like the iPad. You know that the iPad 2 was already in production when they put the first iPad out. And they're like, all right, well, all right, let's sell this one. We got a bunch of them. All right, let's sell 50 million units worldwide. And then right behind that, they go, here's the second one. Wow, that's a lot better. I need a second one. So I'm going to kind of wait with that. One thing that we didn't talk about, and which I think is tremendously cool, is, and I don't know, I haven't fully thought through all the implications because, again, we're 4 hours post-event right now. You can run iOS apps on, what is it? Big Sur? Is that the one they're calling? Yes, Big Sur.
Big Sur.
So now my iOS app that I'm running on my iPhone, my iPad, my Apple TV will now run on my desktop?
No, just your laptop at this point.
Oh, true. Or just your. Well, no. I mean, if you have a Mac Mini and you don't spend the $6,000.
That's an interesting point, though, because I know I heard something or maybe I imagined it, but you need an M1 an M1 based machine in order to compile the apps, the cross platform apps, so to speak. Between Big Sur and iOS. So that's where the price point of the Mac Mini is compelling, because there's your cheap entry point into being that. You just basically add that machine into your environment, and your continuous integration or whatever will be able to do those things for you at a pretty low price point. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. All right, well, that's enough rambling from myself and Jeff all about the brand new M1 and Apple's One More Thing event. Again, for Thingee Tech Talk, I'm Rob Barra.
And I'm Jeff Bromley.
Stay safe out there, everyone. We'll see you soon.